So I was saying that the nitrogen cycle seems to be a little bit of trouble as compared to these other cycles. Now, we need to understand again that there are 3 cycles in the biosphere that we have to talk about, which you guys should remember. 3 cycles in the biosphere, but mostly there are 2 that are talked about. One, the water cycle. The water cycle is highly talked about in grade 7. The other one is oxygen. Now, oxygen and carbon go hand in hand, because in most cases, the compounds where carbon is, we need to understand that even oxygen is present. So it started simultaneously. The other one is the nitrogen cycle. Now, the nitrogen cycle is the one that is a little bit of trouble. So we have to pay attention to the details, okay? And this one that is here is this one that is here is the nitrogen cycle, like I had said. So we are given that, first of all, we have to understand very well that nitrogen is a gas. So this nitrogen, which is in the earth, so here it is atmosphere, it's a gas, it's the atmosphere, it's a gas. Yeah, it's a gas here, ATM, atmosphere, ATM. This is atmosphere. It's a gas. And then when this gas is, there are certain processes here that happens that enable this nitrogen as a gas to be found in plants. So we need to understand that here there is lightning. Now this lightning, when it vashes, and then that lightning itself dissolves this nitrogen into the soil. Now, when this nitrogen goes into the soil, it's a revision, so we have to look at it in a diversified way. When this nitrogen goes into the soil, now that nitrogen, which is a gas, has to undergo some transformation, has to undergo some changes until that nitrogen, which is a gas, is converted into a form that will be obtained by plants, because plants do not have the nose like human beings, where we can say that it's going to breathe nitrogen from the atmosphere. So there are some processes, like first one is nitrogen, which fixes that nitrogen into the soil, and then that nitrogen will undergo some transformation, some changes, until the nitrogen is converted into the forms which can be obtained, obtained by the water in the soil. And then when the plant grows, you'll find that the animals, even human beings were classified as animals, are going to feed only the animals, and that nitrogen, which is in the proteins, will be transferred into animals through feeding. So madi apa ya bwela proteins yankala munyama manje. Now, again, here we need to understand that when animals die, they are buried in the soil. So again, this part here, it's in the soil. So actually, I shouldn't even have indicated this. From nitrogen in the soil, it has to go to this form. So from nitrogen in the soil, it has to go to this form, and then this form, it goes to that obtained by plants. Yeah. So here plants die. When they die, they do defecation. All that. It takes now the nitrogen way into the soil. Now, at this point P, the first form in which these nitrogen or proteins in animals are transferred. So you are saying that in animals, this nitrogen is in form of proteins, according to the diagram that we have. Then the first thing when the animal dies, the animal dies, the animal does defecation in the feces, you find that this nitrogen, which was in form of the proteins now, will be in the soil, and then the first form in which this nitrogen will be, it's ammonia. So here we understand very well that the first form in which this nitrogen is ammonia. Then after this ammonia, while it's in the soil, there are a lot of processes that happened in there. There is denitrification and all that, which you guys can read in your book. Again, what we are saying that this ammonia is converted to the nitrates. Now, these nitrates are the forms in which plants can obtain from the soil. So plants obtain nitrogen from the soil in form of nitrate ions. Yeah, so we are saying that this process here, there's a process where this nitrogen has to be converted to the form in which the plant can absorb. So this point here at R is now the nitrates, because these nitrates now are ready to be absorbed by plants. So this one is nitrate. So the answer is D. To have a similar explanation, allow me maybe to draw a rough of a diagram. All that information in the video is sent, I'm sure you'll be able to see it. So we are saying that this nitrogen is a gas. In the atmosphere, ATM is the atmosphere, we understand it's a gas. In the atmosphere, it's a gas. And then we have this nitrogen, which goes where? In the soil. Because plants, like I said, do not have to breathe the nitrogen gas from the atmosphere. So we need to have the soil somewhere here. Now, in this soil, when lightning happens, so what we have here, pakati hapa, lightning, and the legumes, those plants that have got legumes, that have those that are called leguminous plants, they have special roots that also play an important role in the nitrogen cycle. You can check from your book. So here we have lightning. So this lightning is going to fix now nitrogen into the soil. Now, when this nitrogen goes into the soil, the form in which it is, it's ammonia. So allow me to have the arrows. So we have the nitrogen in the atmosphere. We have the nitrogen in the atmosphere. Now, because of lightning, this nitrogen goes in the soil in form of ammonia. Then here we have got what is called nitrification, we have got denitrification. While in the soil, this ammonia will be converted to the first form. This is a form where now plants will grow and start getting these nitrates from the soil. So we are saying that this ammonia has to be converted to the nitrates. Now these nitrates are forms in which the plants can absorb. So meaning here we have plants that are obtaining direct from the soil, and then plants also feed animals with food. Yeah, so this is what's happening. So plants now are obtaining from the soil, and then plants also feed on the animals, and these animals also can die, can also defecate. By so doing, they are adding nitrogen to the soil, which will be converted in form of the nitrate. So here we're talking about now the dying of animals. Is it making sense to you guys? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what happens. You have the nitrogen in the air, the lightning fixes the soil, the nitrogen in the soil. There it will be in form of ammonia. Now this ammonia has to be converted to the nitrate. These nitrates are the ones, are the forms in which plants obtain from the soil. So when the plants obtain the nitrates, it's here now we are calling it proteins. So in plants, there are proteins. In animals, there are also proteins. So plants feed on animals feed on plants. The nitrogen is now in animals. The animals are prone to dying. The animals die, they take back to the soil, ammonia, and life goes on and on. However, even when this nitrogen is in the soil, we also have what are called denitrifying bacteria. The denitrifying bacteria, these bacteria are very stupid because their actions loosen the form in which this nitrogen is, and then the gas escapes into the atmosphere. I hope that's clear. So now we can go to the question of our interest. So the question of our interest here is, I was just explaining. It's now section B, question 4. So section B, question 4 is section B, question 4 is here. I don't know who suggested. Okay, so section B, question 4, what we have, first said we run through. So I will be a little bit fast. I don't know who's the fourth one. Oh, clever. Okay, so since the one who suggested is not there, we'll run through for the sake of recording and then sending the thing to her. So we have a model. We have a model of a very tiny particle that form matter, and that tiny particle that form matter has a name, and this name is called the atom. So what we have here is the atom. So the atom, we understand very well that the atom has got 3 subatomic particles. So we're saying a tiny particle, but this tiny particle also has what are called some subatomic particles. And these particles are 1, the protons, 2, the neutrons, thirdly, the electrons. Thirdly, the electrons. Now these electrons are found in the, now these electrons have a special place where they are found. They are found in shells. While the combination of protons and neutrons, these two are found in the in the nucleus. So these two guys here collectively are located in the nucleus. And the nucleus is a central point of the atom. So this is a nucleus, meaning within the nucleus, that's where we are likely to have two things here, the protons and the neutrons. And then these round circles here, these round circles are the ones that we are calling the shells. So within these shells, that's where we expect to find these subatomic particles that we are calling electrons. With all that said, I'm sure I can answer the question. What do you call the tiny particle that matter is made up of? We have already said that is an atom. Now they're saying, what do we call tiny particles, not particle, particles, therefore we call them atoms. B, we are told to identify from the diagram which ones are electrons. And we said from this explanation here that electrons are found in the shells. And the things that are in the shells are these dark dots here, which are denoted by N. They are saying identify. Don't write their names, identify. What identity is here are letters. So the only identity that we have here are letters, which is letter P as well as letter N. Most of the times that's how we fail, because we don't understand the question. So the identity of the electron is the N. This one here. All these are electrons. Then the other thing that we have, other than N, it's a P. And P, this is a central point of the atom where the neutrons and protons are found. So therefore, the nucleus is the P. Now, what is a molecule? These atoms, these tiny particles we're calling atoms, have a tendency of joining among themselves or maybe joining with other atoms. And when these guys do that, they form either a molecule or they will form a compound. What is formed depends on what is joining. So in the moment where that these things that are joining are of the same type, we call them a molecule. What do I mean? When oxygen and oxygen combine, what they're going to form is an oxygen molecule. So we can say that a molecule is a substance that is formed when atoms of the same element are joined together. So when these atoms of the same element are joined together, we are rest assured that a molecule is formed. So how is a molecule different from a compound? In most cases, compounds, the atoms that are found that are joined are not of the same element. The example, we can have calcium. I hope you're able to remember those symbols. So we may have calcium, whose symbol is C, A. When this calcium is combined with oxygen, whose symbol is O, this is calcium oxide. This calcium oxide is made up of atoms of two different elements. That's maybe how we can call it a compound. Now, in a molecule, we can have a hydrogen combines with another hydrogen. When there are two, we're going to write a small 2 here. Or that model that we show that they are sharing electrons like that, but at times these models are for higher levels of learning. So when you see that two hydrogen atoms are joined, same, then that's a molecule. Golgi, this says What substance is formed when hydrogen and oxygen are chemically combined? So we have hydrogen, and most cases hydrogen are two of them. And then we also have oxygen. What substance do you think is formed? Water. Now, don't you ever think of drawing the H2O. This H2O, it's okay, it's water, but you may not really know where to put the two. But if you know very well, even better, you can draw it like that. Because the question is neutral. It's saying what substance. They never said what name of the substance. I said what substance. So you can give it symbol, you can also give its name. If we are to move on to question E, give one example of a molecule with the same type of atoms. Hydrogen molecule, oxygen molecule, even the nitrogen we are from talking about, the N2, these are examples of molecules that are formed when atoms of the same element are joined. So we're talking about hydrogen gas, two of them actually. I can also talk about oxygen gas. These are the examples that you can practically settle for. We can move on. We can move on to a question. Unless there are questions, guys, you can ask me one. Questions, guys, at all there is any?
No.
Okay. So the other one is 14. Allow me to rub this thing. Allow me to rub this thing and go to question 5. So there's 4, 5, and 6. So 5 is here. 5, we're talking about the someone has dropped. Who's dropped? Tapio. See. So 5, we're talking about the light. So this thing here, we told that, I think we revised this. First, do you remember it?
Oh, yes, we revised it.
Is there any need, guys, of us going through the same question again?
No.
Tapio, what do you think? Clever, what do you think?
No.
Yeah, maybe we can go to question 6. 6, I see. This one we did, I remember. This one we did, even 8. I think we can go through 8. Yeah. So question 6, yeah, we are told that the diagram below shows the flow of blood, blood flow in blood vessels that are labeled as ARA. So this is our ARA. The tiny ones, then the S is here, which has some features, and these are features that the walls are very thick, and the lumen, the space in there is very small. while T is here, our T, the walls around it is very thin and the lumen there is wide. We can also see the movement of blood from the heart. We understand that this part here should be the aorta. And then as the blood moves from the heart, being distributed to the point where oxygen is needed, we have some subdivision of the blood vessels to the tiny ones within our tissue muscles. And then that's where our ara is. And then when oxygen is used up in the body from the blood, and then we have the rest of the blood, which contains low supply of oxygen, has to go back to the heart so that is pumped to the lungs for the addition of more oxygen, which is called the oxygenation. And we understand very well that this is a vessel which is called the vena cava. So this is a vein, which is called the vena cava. It's called the vena cava, it's a vein. And this one here is the artery, which is called the aorta. Is there ara? Let me just check. Aorta. Okay, so yes, there's ara. That's why it's not looking nice. The aorta. So these are the blood vessels that we have. Now, what about this blood vessel which is here? This blood vessel here is called the blood capillary. It's a blood capillary. They are the tiniest of them all. Now, even as we try to understand the diagram, you find that part of the questions are already answered. So we have the questions here which are saying, identify the blood vessel S. The blood vessel S is the identify the blood vessel, not the type of the blood vessel. You need to understand it, distinguish. They're not saying identify the type for us to say it's the artery. They're saying identify that person. You cannot say that is a boy. The identity, you have to give the name. So this is the aorta. It's the aorta. How did I know? The only thing that gave me ideas is this part, which says this blood is coming direct from the heart. It's the aorta. The other part of the question says, identify the blood vessel ara. It's already there. The smallest ones, the blood capillary. The blood capillary. Okay, so it's called the blood capillary. Then B says, from the diagram, give one reason for identifying the blood vessel S. The blood vessel S in the diagram above, as in A1 above. How did we get to know that blood vessel S is the aorta or is the artery? There are a lot of things that could have led to us to leading to identifying that part. Which ones are they? One, allow me to go all the way up to that. There are a lot of things that could have led. One, thick muscles. Thick muscles. Thin or a small, we call it a narrow lumen, or a narrow hole, but the hole is not really scientific. Just say the narrow lumen. So two things are leading us to identify this blood vessel. So we have this thing here, but the space in there is quite small. All this part is the muscle. Why is it that it has got a bigger muscle? Because the blood that is transported in here is carried at high blood pressure. So the only way that blood will be carried without having any issues of the blood vessel bursting, we need to make sure that the walls around here are protected, thick, and up for the job. So that is what led me to identify the parts. That's what I'm saying. Now, we also need to understand that when we say the lumen, we're talking about this part inside. That's a lumen, and this is the vesicular muscle, the muscle rather. C, which blood vessel, RS or T, will have a lot of carbon dioxide? I have just explained here. Let me change the color. That when this blood which is coming from the heart, it's oxygenated blood. So this blood here is oxygenated. Oxygenated blood. Because this blood contains oxygen. And this blood here is deoxygenated blood. Because the blood which is in there actually in low supply. So, which blood vessel, RS or T, will have a lot of carbon dioxide? It's that blood vessel which does not contain a lot of oxygen. As a result, it's that one which is carrying deoxygenated blood. Which blood vessel, RS or T? Don't give the name. We have been given those identities. So we are going to say vessel T. Is a blood vessel T. Then D says, suggest two substances which can be exchanged between blood vessel R as well as the tissue. What is it that is exchanged between the blood vessel and the tissue? Now, the exchange that we are talking about here, just okay, so sorry, that stepped out. So we are saying that the things that are exchanged between the blood capillary and the muscle, there are quite a lot that we can talk about, but some of them we find that they're explained more in biology. We are just trying to understand a little bit of science. So the best that you can say, they're saying two substances. So these substances that we're going to give out, one has to go into the blood vessel, then the other one leaves the blood vessel. And these ones are the gases. Because the exchange of the gases between carbon dioxide and oxygen is actually done right here. And I'll give you the reasons why it is possible. So the two things that are exchanged are oxygen and the carbon dioxide. How possible is it that way? It is because we can even see, not really, though we cannot see right from the cross section, what happens is that these blood vessels are very tiny. Actually, the thickness of these cells is, the thickness of these blood vessels are just the animal cells. And remember what we said, that animal cells are just made up of the external part, the cell membrane. And what does the cell membrane do? They allow the exchange of, they select what goes in and what goes out. So what goes outside of what moves from the inside of the capillary into the blood, into the muscle tissue, that is oxygen diffusing, and then what goes in is carbon dioxide. And these two are the substances that are exchanged. So the questions you had given me are done. Let me see if I can send another paper where you can identify 2 or 3. Even questions of your own, you can post them in the group and then we'll be able to solve them. Questions, by the way,